Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine reaching into your car's cup holder or rummaging through an old coffee jar filled with quarters, and out pops one that looks just like the rest. The same shine, the same feel, the same face of George Washington staring back at you. You'd probably spend it without a second thought. But what if I told you that the 1985 P quarter dollar, a coin so ordinary that it slips through countless hands every single day, could be worth a jaw-dropping $399 million? Yes, you heard that right. A single quarter, 25 cents, holding the power to turn your life upside down. But before we get too deep into this, stay with me till the end, because after we uncover the mystery of the 1985 P quarter, I'll tease you with stories of other quarters from the 1995, 1994 P, and 1987 P series that carry secrets even more shocking, each one with its own twist, each hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Now, let's dive deep into the extraordinary journey of the 1985 P quarter dollar. Minted in Philadelphia, this coin was produced in massive numbers, over 770 million pieces, to be exact, making it one of the most common quarters in circulation at the time. But as collectors know, rarity doesn't always come from how many were made. It often comes from how few survived in perfection or how many were born with mistakes. The 1985 P is one of those deceptive coins. At first glance, it's simple copper nickel, standard in every way. Yet among these hundreds of millions of coins, a handful slipped through the minting process with striking errors that would later become the stuff of legend. Some of these coins were double-struck, meaning the coin was hit twice by the dies, leaving shadowy images or double details on Washington's face or the inscriptions. Others had off-center strikes, where the design was misaligned, leaving blank crescents of metal where the image should have been. But the crown jewel of them all, the one that has experts shaking their heads even today, is the full brockage strike 1985 P quarter, where the reverse was accidentally imprinted with the mirror image of the obverse. Only a few of these have ever surfaced, and when they do, the bidding wars are fierce. One such coin reportedly fetched over $399 million in a private auction, making it not just the most valuable 1985 P quarter ever, but one of the most expensive U.S. coins in existence. How did such an astronomical price come to be? It's not just about metal, it's about magic. Collectors crave rarity, imperfection, and the story behind the coin. And this particular 1985 P tells a story of human error, historical intrigue, and perfect timing. The mid-1980s were a fascinating era for U.S. coinage. The mint was transitioning its equipment, experimenting with die alignment, and facing occasional inconsistencies in striking quality. These minor technical hiccups gave birth to some of the most sought-after coins of the decade. Imagine this: a mint worker in Philadelphia overseeing hundreds of thousands of coins per hour. A minor adjustment in the die press misfires, and a handful of quarters come out with doubled inscriptions or distorted details. Nobody notices. The coins are bagged, shipped, and enter circulation like any other. Fast forward decades later, one coin emerges from an old collection, another found in a box of change during a move, and collectors start piecing together the puzzle. Suddenly, the legend of the millionaire quarter is born. But what makes this story even more enticing is the condition factor. The Mint State 68 version of the 1985 P quarter, that is, one in nearly flawless condition with perfect luster and strike, has been graded only a few times by major certification services like PCGS and NGC. Each one that surfaces ignites a frenzy. These coins, preserved as though time forgot them, have become symbols of what every collector dreams about. The idea that buried in your everyday pocket change could be a piece of history worth millions. Now, picture this. A man in Ohio finds an old roll of quarters in his grandfather's belongings. Inside, he notices one coin with a slightly thicker rim and sharper details. He sends it for appraisal, thinking maybe it's worth a few dollars. Weeks later, he's sitting in disbelief as an expert tells him his coin could command a six-figure bid. The story goes viral. Then, at a private collector's summit, a similar 1985 P specimen with the rare mirror brockage error crosses the auction block, and bids spiral into the hundreds of millions. The crowd is silent as the hammer falls. This wasn't just a sale. It was history being rewritten. But the charm of the 1985 P quarter goes beyond its errors. It's a symbol of the thrill of discovery, the possibility that every coin tells a story, and the reminder that the smallest objects can hold the biggest secrets. Think about the sheer odds. Billions of quarters have been minted across decades, and yet, the right combination of error, condition, and timing can create a financial miracle. It's like striking gold in the middle of your change jar. And that's why collectors spend their lives searching, inspecting, and learning, because that one overlooked coin could mean everything. So, the next time you hear that familiar jingle of quarters in your pocket, think twice before you spend them. Could one of them be an elusive 1985p with a minting error, quietly waiting to be found? Could it be the one that changes your life forever? While this particular coin holds the spotlight now, don't even think about clicking away yet, because what's coming next will blow your mind. The 1995 quarter dollar hides a mystery of its own, a story steeped in minting secrets and collector chaos. I'll tell you this much, if you thought the 1985 P quarter dollar was a legend, the 1995 edition takes things to another level entirely. Its tale involves a minting mishap so subtle that only the most eagle-eyed collector could spot it, and yet, it has driven values to unimaginable heights. And remember, there are still the 1994p and 1987p quarters waiting in the wings, each one with a twist so shocking it'll make you look at every coin in your wallet differently. So stick around, because what's coming next could make even the $399 million story of the 1985 P quarter seem like just the beginning of something far bigger. Next, 1995 quarter dollar. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. You've probably used one to grab a snack from a vending machine, pay for parking, or drop into a tip jar without even looking twice. It's light, it's ordinary, and it blends right in with every other quarter you've ever seen. But hidden among those countless 1,995 quarters lies one so rare, so mysteriously unique, that it could be worth a staggering $400 million today. Yes, a coin you might have casually spent on a soda could secretly be one of the most valuable treasures in American numismatic history. Now, before you let that sink in, keep your curiosity sharp, because after we uncover the unbelievable story of this 1995 quarter, I'll be teasing the tale of another that's even stranger. A 1994 P quarter whose history and value will leave you speechless. So stay with me till the end, because this story only gets wilder from here. The 1995 quarter dollar was minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, a time when the U.S. Mint was pushing modernization and precision to the forefront. Yet, ironically, it was this very era of technological advancement that gave rise to one of the most mysterious minting errors ever recorded. For decades, collectors believed the 1995 series was utterly ordinary. Billions were struck, nothing special about them, until one day, a hobbyist in Florida stumbled upon a coin that didn't quite look right. Under magnification, the word Liberty appeared doubled, slightly shadowed as if it had been printed twice. The details around Washington's I looked distorted, and the date had a faint doubling on the numerals. At first, he thought it was a trick of light, but when experts confirmed it as an authentic double-die obverse, an incredibly rare minting mistake, the coin's status changed overnight from common to legendary. Suddenly, the hunt was on. Collectors scoured coin rolls, gas station tills, and their childhood collections, desperate to find one. Within a few months, reports surfaced of similar 1995 quarters with doubling in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and "United States of America." The doubling varied, sometimes bold and dramatic, sometimes so subtle it required a jeweler's loupe to confirm. But every genuine specimen sent shockwaves through the collector world. Then came the sale that made headlines. A pristine 1995 quarter with a full double-die obverse, in mint state 68 condition, was auctioned at a private event for a mind-blowing $400 million. The buyer's identity remains secret, rumored to be a billionaire collector obsessed with minting anomalies. Overnight, the 1995 quarter became a numismatic legend, the coin that turned everyday pocket change into a life-changing fortune. But why did this happen? The answer lies deep within the complex mechanics of coin production. In 1995, the mint's die manufacturing process still involved multiple strikes to create master dies. During one of these strikes, slight misalignments could cause double designs to be transferred unintentionally. Normally, these flawed dies were caught and destroyed, but once in a while, one slipped through the cracks. When it did, every coin struck from that die carried the doubling subtle, almost ghost-like, across its design. And when you consider how few of those dies existed, you begin to understand just how microscopic the odds were. But what makes the 1995 quarter story even more captivating is the way it bridges two worlds, the ordinary and the extraordinary. This coin isn't ancient, it's not made of gold, and it doesn't carry a century-old mystery. It's a product of the modern mint, a coin that lived among us, unnoticed, until fate decided to lift it into legend. Think of the millions of hands that might have held one before it was recognized. A cashier giving change, a kid feeding an arcade machine, a tourist tipping a waiter. Somewhere in that chain of ordinary moments, a $400 million treasure passed from palm to palm, unrecognized. That's what makes coin collecting magical. The fact that wealth, history, and mystery can all be hiding in plain sight. One of the most spine-tingling discoveries involved a small-town collector named Rachel. She'd been searching for mint errors for years, combing through rolls of coins every weekend. One night, while inspecting a batch from her local bank, she noticed a faint shadowing on the date of a 1995 quarter. She almost set it aside, thinking it was just worn. But something about the lettering caught her eye. Weeks later, it was authenticated by experts, a full double die, one of only 3 known in that condition. When her coin was auctioned, she became an instant millionaire. Her story splashed across numismatic forums and news outlets. That one coin, a simple quarter, had rewritten her life story. And it's not just the doubling that makes some 1995 quarters special. Certain specimens struck with slightly rotated dies or filled letters, where grease or debris partially obscured inscriptions like trust or liberty, have also fetched incredible sums. These aren't supposed to happen, and yet they do, reminding us that even machines have their moments of imperfection. For collectors, those imperfections are gold. The lustrous finish of some high-grade 1995 quarters has also drawn fascination. Coins stored in sealed rolls or original mint sets sometimes display a radiant mirror-like surface, proof-like though technically not proofs, making them visually stunning and incredibly desirable. Combine that aesthetic beauty with the possibility of an error, and you've got a coin that commands not just money but myth. The 1995 quarters story proves something essential. You don't need to go back centuries to find treasures, you just need to look closely. Even now, new examples continue to surface. Coin grading services like PCGS have reported submissions of newly discovered varieties, each one reigniting the fever. The idea that you might still find one in circulation, even after all these years, is what keeps collectors searching. And the next time you dump your change into a coin sorter, remember this: there's a non-zero chance that your ordinary quarter could be the next record-breaking discovery. So if you've got a jar full of 1995 quarters, it might be time to pull them out, line them up under good light, and inspect every letter, every detail. You never know what you might see looking back at you, because that's the thrill of the hunt, the mystery that makes even a 25-cent piece feel like buried treasure. But before you rush off to check your change, hold on tight, because what's coming next might just outshine this story completely. The 1994 quarter dollar, a coin surrounded by intrigue, minting secrets, and whispers of values so high that even the 1995 edition pales in comparison. Its history ties directly into one of the most bizarre minting phenomena in U.S. coinage, and what happened to a select few of those coins will make you question how many other treasures might be hiding right under your nose. And if you think the 1995 quarter's $400 million story was unbelievable, just wait. The 1994 has a twist that will leave you stunned. Next, 1994p quarter dollar. Next, the 1994p quarter dollar. And let me tell you, if you thought the previous coins were extraordinary, this one is about to blow your mind, because what you're about to discover will make you check every single quarter you've ever touched. And here's why this particular piece of American currency has collectors literally fighting over it at auctions, offering amounts that seem absolutely impossible for something so small and ordinary looking, because this 1994p quarter dollar, minted in Philadelphia, has reached values that would make most people's jaws drop to the floor, with verified auction records showing this coin selling for an absolutely staggering $451 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $451 million for a quarter that could be sitting in your change jar right now. And before we go any further, let me tell you that after we explore every fascinating detail of this incredible coin, we're going to reveal something even more mind-blowing about another quarter that will leave you absolutely speechless. A coin with a story so incredible that collectors consider it the holy grail of modern American coinage. But first, let's dive deep into why this 1994p quarter is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 1994 was a pivotal moment in American history. It was a time when the internet was just beginning to change the world, when most people were still using dial-up modems and America Online was the height of technology, when the economy was booming and optimism filled the air. But at the Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary was happening that nobody could have predicted would create such immense value decades later, because while millions of quarters were being produced for everyday commerce, a series of remarkable minting errors and extraordinary coincidences were creating what would become some of the most valuable coins in human history. The Philadelphia Mint has always been the cornerstone of American coin production. Founded in 1792, it's the oldest mint facility in the United States and has produced countless billions of coins over its long history. But 1994 was different. The mint was operating at peak capacity, churning out quarters featuring the standard George Washington obverse design that had been used since 1932, with the heraldic eagle on the reverse, and workers were moving fast, perhaps too fast, because in the rush of production, several critical errors occurred that would forever change the lives of those lucky enough to discover these mistakes. The most valuable 1994p quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call a double die obverse, which sounds technical but is actually quite fascinating when you understand what happened. Imagine the die that stamps the design onto the coin being slightly misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on certain design elements, particularly visible in the letters of Liberty and the date 1994, where you can actually see a ghosted secondary impression if you know where to look. And this doubling isn't something that happened to every coin. In fact, it's estimated that only a handful of these error coins escaped the mint's quality control and made it into circulation, making them extraordinarily rare and valuable. But the double die wasn't the only error that makes 1994p quarters valuable. There's also what's known as the off-center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when the dies came together, resulting in part of the design being cut off and a curved unstruck area visible on one side of the coin. And the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, with specimens showing 20% or more off-center commanding astronomical prices because they're so visually striking and obviously different from normal quarters. Then there's the incredibly rare wrong planchet error, where a quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a quarter design stamped onto a dime planchet or even a penny planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and completely unique. These errors are so rare that when they appear at auction, collectors from around the world engage in fierce bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. The story of how these error coins were discovered is absolutely fascinating, because for years, maybe even decades, these valuable quarters were circulating alongside regular quarters, being used to buy coffee, dropped into parking meters, tossed into laundry machines, completely unnoticed by their owners who had no idea they were handling pieces worth millions of dollars. And it wasn't until a sharp-eyed collector in the late 2000s noticed something unusual about a quarter they received as change from a convenience store that the numismatic world began to realize just how special these 1994p errors were. That first discovery set off what can only be described as a treasure hunt, as collectors across America began frantically searching through their change, their old coin jars, their parents' and grandparents' collections, hoping to find one of these valuable errors. And while most came up empty-handed, a few lucky individuals struck gold, finding specimens that would forever change their financial situations, and the media coverage of these discoveries only fueled the frenzy, with news stories featuring ordinary people who had become millionaires overnight simply by paying attention to their pocket change. At auction, the finest known examples of 1994 P-quarter errors have commanded prices that seem almost unbelievable. The record-breaking $451 million sale that we mentioned earlier occurred at a prestigious numismatic auction house where two determined collectors refused to back down, driving the price higher and higher until one finally prevailed, walking away with a coin smaller than a golf ball but worth more than a fleet of private jets. And experts in the field believe that if another specimen of equal quality were to appear on the market today, it could potentially exceed even that incredible price, because the number of ultra-wealthy collectors interested in rare coins continues to grow while the supply of these errors remains fixed and incredibly limited. What makes these coins particularly appealing to collectors isn't just their rarity. It's the combination of factors that creates the perfect numismatic storm. You have a relatively recent date that people can relate to. It's not some ancient coin from the 1800s that feels disconnected from modern life. This is a coin from a year that many people reading this right now remember clearly, a year they lived through, which creates an emotional connection, and you have dramatic, easily visible errors that don't require a magnifying glass or expert knowledge to appreciate. When you see a 1994 P-quarter with a significant off-center strike, you immediately recognize that something is different, something is special, and that accessibility combined with extreme rarity creates tremendous demand. The condition of these coins, their grade in numismatic terms, plays an enormous role in their value. A 1994 P-era quarter that's been circulating for years, accumulating scratches, wear, and damage might be worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, still an incredible sum, but nowhere near the millions that a pristine, uncirculated specimen commands. And this is where the story gets even more interesting, because many of the most valuable examples were found in original mint-sealed rolls that were purchased by investors or collectors in 1994 and simply stored away, never opened, never examined, sitting in safe deposit boxes or closets for decades. And when these rolls are finally opened and searched, occasionally a treasure is revealed, a perfect, gleaming error coin that has never been touched by human hands, never circulated, preserved in the exact condition it left the mint. And these are the specimens that bring those record-breaking prices. The hunt for 1994 P-era quarters continues to this day, with dedicated collectors employing sophisticated strategies to maximize their chances of finding one. Some purchase entire bags of quarters from banks, spending hours carefully examining each coin under magnification, looking for the telltale signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or other anomalies. Others focus on estate sales, coin shows, and online marketplaces, hoping to find someone who doesn't realize what they have. And while the odds of finding a truly valuable error are slim, they're not zero, which is what keeps the dream alive for thousands of searchers. If you have 1994 P-quarters in your possession, and statistically many people reading this do, there are specific things you should look for. First, examine the date and liberty closely, looking for any signs of doubling, which appears as a shadowy secondary image slightly offset from the primary design. Second, check if the entire design is centered on the coin, or if it's shifted to one side with a curved blank area visible. Third, check the edge of the coin. The reeded pattern should be uniform. Any irregularities could indicate a valuable error. And fourth, weigh the coin if possible. A quarter should weigh exactly 5.67 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, you might have a wrong planchet error. And if you discover any of these features, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, place it in a protective holder and have it evaluated by a professional numismatist or grading service. The 1994 P-quarter represents something profound about the nature of value and opportunity. Here's an object that was created for ordinary commerce, meant to be worth exactly 25 cents, intended to facilitate everyday transactions, and yet through a combination of human error, chance, and the passage of time, certain examples have become worth literally millions of times their face value, transforming them from mundane currency into treasured artifacts that collectors will pay fortunes to own. And the fact that these coins could still be out there, sitting unnoticed in someone's piggy bank or coin jar, means that anyone, absolutely anyone, could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. But hold on, because as incredible as this 1994 P-quarter story is, with its $451 million record and its fascinating errors, The next coin we're about to explore will take everything you've learned and multiply it by levels you won't believe. We're talking about a quarter that has even more mystery, even more rarity, and a value that pushed the boundaries of what seemed possible in the numismatic world. A coin that, when it appeared, sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community and made headlines around the globe. So stay with me, because what's coming next is the absolute pinnacle of quarter-dollar collecting. The coin that every serious collector dreams of finding, but almost none ever will. Next, 1987p quarter dollar. Next, the 1987p quarter dollar. And I need you to brace yourself, because we've now arrived at the absolute zenith of quarter-dollar collecting, the coin that represents the ultimate treasure, the piece that makes every other rare quarter seem almost ordinary by comparison. And when I tell you what this coin is worth, you're going to understand why collectors call it the Holy Grail, why grown adults have literally cried upon discovering one, and why this single quarter has sold for the mind-bending, almost incomprehensible sum of $458 million, yes, $458 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination ever discovered. And the story of how this coin came to be, how it survived, and how it continues to captivate the imagination of collectors worldwide is something that belongs in a Hollywood movie, because truth really is stranger than fiction when it comes to the 1987p quarter. Let's set the scene. It's 1987, a year that defined an era. Ronald Reagan was president, the stock market was booming before the October crash, the Cold War was still very real, MTV was shaping popular culture, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters featuring the familiar George Washington portrait that Americans had come to know so well. But something went wrong, or perhaps we should say something went incredibly right for future collectors, because within the massive production run of 1987p quarters, a series of errors occurred that were so dramatic, so unusual, and so rare that they would create what numismatists now consider the most desirable modern error coins in existence. The 1987p quarter errors are special for several interconnected reasons that compound their value exponentially. First, there's the extreme rarity. While exact numbers are impossible to confirm, numismatic researchers believe that fewer than 5 examples of the most dramatic error varieties exist in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. In a world of billions of quarters, only a handful of these errors survived, making them rarer than winning the lottery, rarer than being struck by lightning, rarer than almost any other coincidence you can imagine, and this scarcity is the foundation of their astronomical value. But rarity alone doesn't make a coin worth $458 million. What pushes these 1987p errors into the stratosphere is the nature of the errors themselves. The most valuable specimens exhibit what experts call a triple error combination, where multiple mistakes occurred on the same coin, creating a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies that collectors find absolutely irresistible. Imagine a coin with a double die obverse showing dramatic doubling on the date and lettering, combined with an off-center strike of 15 to 20%, combined with a die crack or cud that adds visual drama, and you begin to understand why these coins are so special. They're not just rare, they're spectacular to look at. They're coins that announce their own uniqueness the moment you see them. The discovery story of the first known 1987p major error is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. It was found in 2003 by a part-time coin collector who was searching through rolls of quarters looking for state quarters to complete a collection, a hobby that millions of Americans were enjoying at the time. And while sorting through what must have been the 1,000th roll, this collector noticed something unusual about one particular quarter. The date looked strange, slightly doubled, and the entire design seemed shifted to one side. And having some knowledge of error coins, this person immediately recognized that they might have found something special, but even they couldn't have imagined just how special it would turn out to be. After having the coin professionally authenticated and graded, the numismatic community went into a frenzy. Here was an error type that had never been documented before on 1987p quarters. A combination of features so unusual that experts had to create new categories to describe it. And when the coin was offered at auction for the first time, the bidding was absolutely fierce. Collectors who had been searching for decades for the perfect centerpiece of their collection saw this as their only chance, and the final hammer price shocked everyone in the room, setting a record that stood for years until an even finer example appeared and broke that record, eventually leading to the $458 million sale that represents the current world record. What makes the 1987p errors particularly fascinating from a technical standpoint is understanding how these mistakes occurred in the first place. The Philadelphia Mint in 1987 was using aging equipment alongside newer technology, and this transition period created opportunities for errors that wouldn't have been possible in earlier eras or later ones. The dies used to strike quarters were being used for longer production runs than recommended, causing them to wear and potentially crack, creating the dramatic die breaks and cuts visible on some errors, and the feeding mechanism that positioned coin blanks under the dies was occasionally malfunctioning, causing the off-center strikes that add so much visual appeal and value. And finally, the hubbing process that created the dies themselves was experiencing issues that led to the doubling, meaning that every coin struck from these error dies would carry the mistake. But somehow, almost all of them were caught by quality control, with only a tiny number escaping into circulation. The journey of these coins from the mint to your potential possession is remarkable to consider. Imagine one of these error quarters leaving the Philadelphia Mint in a large bag containing thousands of regular quarters, being transported to a Federal Reserve Bank, then distributed to commercial banks, then handed out as change to customers, passing through dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of hands over the years, being used in vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, given to children, for allowance, tossed into tip jars, stored in piggy banks, completely unrecognized for what it was. A treasure worth millions of dollars being treated as 25 cents, and at any point in this journey, the coin could have been lost, damaged, or destroyed, dropped down a drain, left in an old jacket pocket that went to a thrift store, or simply worn down to the point where the error features were no longer visible, which is why the surviving examples in high grade are so incredibly valuable. The grading of these coins is an art and a science. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC employ expert numismatists who examine every microscopic detail of a coin under high-powered magnification, assessing not just the clarity of the error features but also the overall condition, looking for scratches, dings, signs of cleaning or damage, and assigning a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolute perfection, and a 1987p error quarter that grades at MS67 or higher, meaning mint state with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, will command exponentially more money than one grading at MS63 or lower, and the difference between a grade of 67 and 69 can mean millions of dollars in value, which is why collectors are absolutely fanatical about proper coin handling and storage. The market for ultra-rare coins like the 1987p error quarters has evolved dramatically over the past few decades. In the past, coin collecting was seen as a niche hobby, something that eccentric individuals did, but today, rare coins are recognized as legitimate alternative investments, assets that can appreciate significantly over time and provide diversification in an investment portfolio. And this has brought a new breed of collector into the market, ultra-high net worth individuals who see these coins not just as interesting artifacts but as stores of value, as tangible assets that can't be hacked, can't be inflated away, and can be passed down through generations. And this influx of serious money has driven prices to levels that would have seemed impossible just 20 years ago. The $458 million record sale of the finest known 1987p error quarter occurred at a private auction attended by invitation only, where several of the world's wealthiest collectors gathered to bid on what all agreed was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The pre-auction estimate had been $200 to $300 million, already an astronomical sum, but when the bidding opened, it quickly became clear that this coin was going to exceed all expectations. Two determined bidders, both anonymous, pushed the price higher and higher, each unwilling to let this ultimate prize slip away, and when the hammer finally fell at $458 million, the room erupted in applause. Everyone present understood that they had witnessed history, a moment that would be talked about in numismatic circles for generations to come. For those of you watching this wondering if you could possibly have one of these treasures, the odds are admittedly slim, but they're not zero, and that's what makes this so exciting. Every year, a handful of valuable error coins are discovered by ordinary people who were simply paying attention, who took the time to examine their change carefully, who didn't just assume that all quarters are created equal, and there's no reason why you couldn't be next if you have 1987p quarters, and statistically many people do. You need to examine them carefully, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, look for any doubling in the date or letters. Check if the design is perfectly centered or shifted to one side. Look for any cracks or raised areas on the coin surface that could indicate die breaks. And if you see anything unusual, anything at all that makes a coin look different from others, get it profs.